Welcome to Wine Soundtrack USA. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world in 30 answers. Discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Allison Levine, and today I'm in the tasting room with Scott Sampler of CCGP. Scott's going to tell us what that's about, but we are in Buellton, California, in Santa Barbara wine country. Scott, welcome, and tell us, what is CCGP?
It's a winery. It's called the Central Coast Group Project. It's the acronym. It's the group project. Sometimes gets confused as if there are many people making wine. I'm the only winemaker, but it's now become kind of an umbrella for two other brands, Scottie Boy Wines and Large Door.
Large Door. So, very briefly, can you tell us what is CCGP, what is Large Door, and what is Scottie Wines? Like, how do you define these wines?
So there's the eponymous label, which is what I started with, which are super slow, I guess you could say luxury fine wines that are primarily for fine dining. I mean, that's the main market, fine dining and special occasions, collecting.
And when you say slow wines, you mean long macerations, long fermentations, like natural wines.
Everything as slow as possible.
Okay.
So they're 4 to 6 years from, they're released about 4 to 6 years from harvest.
Okay.
And and they're made in a very natural way. No inoculations, no additions, no fining, no filtering, and then super long post-fermentation, extended maceration, and super long barrel aging.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you have?
And then I have Scottie Boy Wines, which are, it's also called Scottie Boy Fine Wines and Super Coolers. It's a very irreverent, I guess you could say natty wine label.
Natty for those of us is like natural.
Yeah, natural, like irreverent, funky, fun wines that are very reasonably priced and kind of push the boundaries of what we consider wine. You know, what is it? A wine? Is it a beverage?
Yeah.
You know, that's why I put super cooler. It takes all the pressure of wine off.
Well, let's just say, what did you study in college?
Philosophy.
Okay, so this is how this is going to go with answers. Just be prepared.
Yeah. So
these are wines that are natural, but not in the negative sense. These are really sound wines. They're not kind of dirty, weird, funky, like wet socks. These are cool wines, unfined, unfiltered. I'm looking at them and they're all kind of these cloudy colors. What's your total case production?
On these was around 1,000 cases roughly for just the Scottie Boy line.
And CCGP?
CCGP is about 2,500 cases.
Okay. And you don't own any vineyards? You're sourcing fruit?
No, yeah, I have acreage contracts at various vineyards. So.
And where are you sourcing fruit from?
I'm sourcing fruit from Spear.
In the Santa Rita Hills.
In Santa Rita Hills, Larner, Thompson.
So Larner's in Ballard Canyon.
Yes.
And Thompson is in
a new AVA called Elisa's Canyon.
Ah.
And Shokrian Vineyard, White Hawk Vineyard up in Cat Canyon, and other vineyards.
So really Central Coast. Truly
It's all Santa Barbara County.
Santa Barbara County specifically. Yeah. And where are your wines available? Are they available just direct to consumer? Are you in any markets?
Yes, they're available in New York, primarily New York City. They're available in Washington, D.C. and Virginia. They're available in Texas and all over the state of Texas. And they're available in California, primarily in Los Angeles, but also some in San Diego and the Central Coast.
And then direct from you.
And direct from the winery, yes.
So what is your first memory relevant to wine? What do you remember? How old were you?
Very, very young. My father kind of casually collected wine, and so I was always kind of looking through his store of wines in the basement. And
did you ever get to try it?
Yeah, I was poured sips like in the European fashion at the dinner table, and so the very first wine memory is just like holding like a bottle of BV, Georges de Latour, and asking my father about it. It's probably a 67 or 69 vintage.
Lucky you.
Yeah. And I was probably like 3 or 4. I can't remember.
So, as you got more into wine drinking, do you have one of those aha wines? Is there a memorable wine you drink where it just sort of, changed your perspective or opened your eyes to something? And if so, what was that wine and the occasion? I'm sure you've had more than one, but can you think of one?
There's one major aha wine. I was at L'Arpège in Paris with some French agronomists. And so they were very keyed in to ordering wine at such places and seemed to kind of know the sommelier there. And they were trying to find interesting wines, and they got into a conversation where he knew like these are... they were either friends or that he was just fascinated that they were agronomists. And so he brought out this wine that looked like it just came out of a barn. It was like this kind of like very rustic looking bottle, and it had handwriting on it. And it was apparently a Grenache somewhere from the northern Rhone region, like maybe the southernmost part of the northern Rhone. I didn't really catch it because it was all happening in French very quickly, and there was no translation. And when he poured the wine out, it was this beautiful kind of garnet, purplish garnet tone, very unique, and it had it was turbid. And so he said, like, the wine is turbid. There's stuff floating around in it. And it was like, that's the way it's supposed to be. And so we started drinking this bottle. It was just the most amazing. The most delicious, to me at that point, it was like the most delicious wine by far that I had ever drunk. And I was completely fascinated by the turbidity of it because it was imperceptible. You could see these things floating around, but they had no texture whatsoever. So like it was a magical kind of wine experience. And it was a Grenache, apparently.
And it set you on a path of natural wine.
That and I just love Old Barolo. That's my favorite. So.
Yeah, so we're sitting in your tasting room and surrounded by lots of wonderful bottles of wine. Of course, they're all empty, so you've drunk them all. Great wines from around the world. If we were to go into your cellar of wines you haven't drunk, what would we find in there? Is it international, focused on a particular region?
Unfortunately, right now...
you drank it all?
I've drunk almost all of my good wines. And since I've started making wine, I'm so busy working. And I'm up here in, is this beyond Exurbia? Is it it's like a rural, is this Exurbia or is this rural?
rural, but we're in like an industrial park in rural land.
Yeah, but this is like is it even Exurbia? It's smaller than Exurbia, right?
I have no idea.
I don't know. All right. So, and so they're not really international wine shops. So in order to get those wines, I have to order them. I actually right now have a decent credit at Chamber Street, but I have not used it for some reason. Probably because it's too hot to ship, but I probably should get on that this fall and get some good Barolo or something. But yeah, that's what I would choose. I would choose, I love Chateau Reyes and I love Old Barolo. Those are like the things that I try to
buy a lot of.
Try to acquire whenever possible. But then I like wine. I really like trying wine from all over the place and trying all kinds of different producers, people I haven't had, people I've never tried. Uh-huh. And
have you opened anything recently that tasted really good?
Yes.
That wasn't your wine.
Yes.
He has to look for the bottle to remind him of the name.
I do. Yes. I can't. It's too hard to remember.
With a flashlight, too. My goodness.
This was very good.
Okay.
This was very good. I like this a lot.
Just to give a visual, there are probably about 100 plus empty bottles. And this is... Okay, tell me about it.
I had this recently. It's called Domaine de Trevelone. Uh-huh. And it is... I forget entirely the story, and that's why it's good that I have the bottle. But it was completely delicious. It's kind of like there's like a great story behind it, but I can't recall.
That's okay. There's a great story behind every wine.
There's a really, really cool story behind it, and it was absolutely delicious.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so do you think, and I know you're a philosopher, but do you think there's a such thing as a perfect variety?
No.
Okay, simple. Now you're making different wines. I mean, there's obviously a big trend for natural wines, and they're very popular, but they're not the sort of norm of the wine industry. So I'm curious, what's your opinion on wine critics and scores?
I'm a big believer in the cellar and Refusé.
You refuse to answer. I understand. I don't speak French, but I understand.
So the Salon de Refusé was back, when Impressionism was coming up. In order to have a successful art career, you had to be kind of knighted by the Académie Française in Paris, the art academy there, and so all the like super talented, most of the super talented painters were experimenting with Impressionism, and so when it came time each year, they would have this exhibit at this academy, the art academy, and the year that Impressionism was coming up, they rejected all of the Impressionists
because they didn't fit the mold.
Because it didn't, because it wasn't. It didn't fit the mold. It was like, it was not painting. It wasn't even painting. It was just like, what are you doing? So just like this mess on the canvas. What is that?
So the critics haven't quite jumped on the high reviews of natural wines yet.
No, but I'm just saying, there's a value in criticism in terms of, once things are kind of like, there's a value in criticism. There are all kinds of different critics because, like Jackson Pollock, he had Clement Greenberg. And so Clement Greenberg was one critic who like really latched on and said, no, you really have to look at this. This is important. And then eventually people caught up, unfortunately not during his lifetime. But, in general, critics kind of like protect things that have already been established and try to get things towards some idea of objective perfection or some kind of like a objective excellence that you can achieve in something that's kind of subjective. And so they're like kind of latching on to certain trends or certain traditions that have been established. And so when that's not interesting for progress or creative-minded people who want to experiment and try different things, it's like, has a perfect wine been created? Can you really not blend Chardonnay and Grenache Blanc? Is that not a real blend? Or
well, you did it.
But there are all kinds of rules. It's just like the super Tuscans
who broke the rules.
It's like the Tuscan winemakers who are growing Bordeaux varietals in Tuscany. They had to call their wines table wine, de tavola. And then, Super Tuscans became a marketing thing because the wines were great and people liked them. Like, if you show it to people, just like you show people the Impressionist paintings, they really love them. The critics had to fail them.
Right.
But the people loved them so much that eventually, the really good stuff.
So basically, you're going to have to try these wines and raise them up.
I'm not saying
no.
I have not submitted these to review, but that's just that's just generally my thought is that I appreciate the Salon de Refusé, because I like to see people pushing technique and trying new things, new blends, experimenting with.
I normally ask a question, but I'm going to have to add. I usually say in a quick, rapid fire answer, red, white, or rosé. But I'm going to say red, white, rosé, or orange.
I'll get both.
Still or sparkling?
I'll get both.
So, do you have any tips on food and wine pairing? I mean, you're doing some cool blends and flavor profiles. How do you then approach pairing it with food? Do you think there are rules to follow? I know you're not a rule follower in making wine, but how about with food?
Well, I ascribe to the trial and error school of food pairing, because I love eating. Mm-hmm. So, it's always a good excuse to try all of your wines with every imaginable pairing possible, just to see what's up. But
and then when you wake up with that hangover the next day, any cures?
It doesn't. See, and that's another thing is when you start making wine, it leaves little room for trying other wine because you're drinking so much of your own wine. No, just kidding. I kid.
So let me ask you something. For somebody who's never tasted your wines, has yet to taste them, what do you think they're missing out on? Fun. Nice and simple. If space aliens were to land on your property, which is actually quite possible with you, which of your wines would you want to present to them?
I mean, of course, I'd have to see them. I'd gauge their personality, and think
But if you had to kind of go,
drinkers and white wine drinkers, and
if you had to go kind of blindly and just say, I'm going to pick the wine I want to choose to represent.
I mean, I don't know if that would be the end of my life right there. So
you're making this very challenging.
Yeah. So I'd probably pick end of the life wine, and I'd probably I'd either pop a blood orange or Barrington Hall.
So can you quickly say what the blood orange is and what the Barrington Hall is? Yeah.
Blood orange is a really cool orange wine. It's like a fine orange wine because it had, two full years in barrel, 6.5 months on the skins, and then it has an interesting fermentation process, which is.
What are the grape varieties?
It's primarily skin fermented Viognier, but it also incorporates blood of the harvest. So I'd say there's about anywhere from a 10 to maxing out at 20%, 25% maybe. Saunier element. So as fruit comes in, and whatever I destem, there's runoff from the fruit on the destemmer on the sorting table, and so those little buckets of juice, I pour into the Viognier, and that extends the primary fermentation the entire harvest. So it's like an extended primary fermentation.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, skin from, you get primarily the skin contact Viognier expression, but the little bleeds from all the other red grapes and whatever else is happening in the winery really gives it kind of like this interesting complexity. Maybe rounds it out a little bit.
That would be a really good wine to welcome people. They're either going to be completely turned off, which I've had the wine and I know they won't, or they'll be completely intrigued and they're going to like park their vehicle here and explore.
Yeah.
So, every vintage tells a different story, and you're doing some really cool blends. And aside from the winemaking that you do, the approach that you take and the blends that you do, how much does vintage variation play in the grapes and in how the wine comes out? Do you see more similarities or more differences from year to year?
If you're not making additions and adjusting things in the wine chemistry, vintage variation is huge. Especially, we went through this really intense drought period where 13, 14, 15, 16 were just crazy harvests early, like really low yields in 15, like incredibly so. The combination of the drought, but also there was like a wind event during flowering for some of like the late ripening varietals like Syrah, which just like decimated the harvest was shattered. So that was a very inconsistent vintage. And then 13, for example, was probably like the best, I think, of the drought vintages because it came in very small, like much lower cluster weights and smaller berries, and so you got like this incredible tannic structure, and those wines are incredibly ageable. So 12 is like a little bit more fruity vintage. Everything else I have is in barrel.
So you don't know yet? No.
Yeah. So yeah, there's some like 16 was super fruit forward, I found, and powerful.
Well, right now I've got in my glass a 2019, so that's a young wine for you. The Scottie Boy, which is, let's see, it says here, Grenache Blanc 60%, Chardonnay 40%, full carbonic skin contact, which is really cool. So, so I think it's more your technique than it is the vintage that plays a role in the results of your wine.
Well, I mean, in this one, but the other wines are pretty much made in a very similar fashion. They have very long, extended maceration, super long periods on the skins post-fermentation, but they're all made in that style, and I feel like that style really brings out whatever's happening in the fruit. So it kind of enhances the sense of place. It enhances the sense of time. It enhances varietal characteristics, to the contrary of what some other people might say about extended maceration.
So you're going into the vineyards and you're traveling all throughout Santa Barbara County, visiting different vineyards that you're working with. Do you have a tendency to talk to your vines?
No.
Do you talk to your wines that are here in your winery since they've been in barrel for 2 years? Do you give them a little love verbally?
I play loud music to them.
Loud music to keep them awake?
Just to give them good vibes. Keep them entertained.
So, when you were a little boy, what did you want to be when you grew up?
At first, I wanted to be a fashion photographer. And then at 12, I saw Apocalypse Now at the Cinerama Dome. And then I wanted to be a filmmaker. And then I went on and did filmmaking. And then I started making wine.
And now you're a winemaker.
Yeah.
So when you're not making wine, how do you spend your free time? Do you have free time?
I do not have free time.
No?
Yeah. When I'm not making wine, I'm usually selling wine or having dinner.
Okay. Do you have any, any favorite singers or groups?
Yes, I love Miles Davis and Ornette Coleman. I love The Germs and Black Flag. And I'm a big fan of Beethoven.
Nice eclectic range of music, and the good thing about music is you can listen while you're working, so
yes.
you can have a hobby.
And then everything that kind of goes in between those.
Right.
Just like, you throw some classic rock in there.
So
Throw some new wave.
for a perfect evening, if you were planning a romantic evening for someone, what kind of wines would you be opening up? What makes for a romantic evening for you, wine-wise?
Well, yeah, champagne, that's always romantic. Sparkling wine, champagne. Grenache, I think, is pretty romantic because it has a very fascinating color, especially if you get the lighter hued Grenaches. I think that those are pretty romantic wines. They also have like this candied strawberry quality to them, which, I don't know, kind of elicits kind of the right direction, I guess. I don't know.
You're not wooing anyone here. Come on, you gotta entice them. So, when you look back at your career, and you obviously had a career in the film industry before you got into wine, but whether it was previous to wine or in wine, what would you say is one of your proudest achievements to date?
Before wine?
No, it could be before wine. But it could be from the wine industry. Do you have one of those, an achievement that you look back at that you just, it doesn't have to be ego-driven, but one that you just kind of go, pat yourself on the shoulder and go, yeah, I'm proud.
Let's see. That's a very difficult question. It's very introspective. I haven't been introspective in a long time. There are a couple of, I would say, you mean personal success kind of things? I
don't know it. How you determine a successful achievement?
A successful achievement. Okay, I would say in general, I've made some really, really great friends in the wine industry, and I really appreciate that. I'm grateful for all the people that I've met on the journey. I'd say collectively, that is the best achievement, that I'm still here, and that's basically because of all the people that I've met and who've just supported the project and talked about the wines or sold the wines, or that is amazing to me, that it's had some kind of a momentum out in the world, that I'm just not in a vacuum or in a box. Just making wine for myself, that some of it has translated to other people and people have felt emotions or expressions. That when I taste people and they have emotional reactions to the wine, that I feel is an accomplishment in terms of.
Great.
Even there's always a debate as to whether wine can be art, and I think that if you make wine with intention and you put a lot of yourself into it in making it, just like gyro and sushi, that somehow translates. There's like some energy in there that translates, and people have genuine emotional responses.
Look at that. He got introspective and now he's just on fire.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have you go introspective again. When you think of all these people that you've met along the way, all the people that have influenced you and supported you, is there a piece of advice anyone gave you that you kind of carry with you, whether it's in your life or in how you handle making wine or working, and who gave it to you?
I think it was Bruno D'Alfonso and Chris Curran, and they always said, it's easy to make wine, but it's hard to sell it.
Yes, you are not the first winemaker to tell me that's a piece of advice that they got.
Yeah. That's like one of the most important things to consider, because when you embark on wine, because it's very romantic and fun and relatively easy to make, and so you can get very enamored with yourself making wine and think that it's a good idea. But it is selling it is a whole different game, because wine is very similar. It's just like sushi. I always like to go back to the sushi reference, because a lot of people are buying fish and cutting fish, and they all have the same ingredient, and it's all similar. Everyone's they're all making yellowtail sushi or whatever. So to actually stand out and to actually stand out and then get people to pay attention is a challenge. Yes.
If you could offer one piece of advice to our listeners today, what would you tell them?
About what?
I don't know.
One piece of advice?
Yeah.
That was a good one right there.
That was.
Yeah, that was.
But if they're not going to make wine, they're only drinking wine.
I would say follow your palate. Have fun with wine. Don't get too. I would say don't get too enamored with points. And try as much as you can and kind of learn what you like. And trust your own palate. Everyone has a different one. I mean, if you love. If you love Night Train, go with it.
So complete this sentence for me. A table without wine is like.
A table without wine is like a car without a steering wheel.
So now, imagine another scenario. No, that was good. Imagine a table at a restaurant. You're sitting at this table, and you've got your wines on the table. There's Scottie Boy wines, there's CCGP wines on the table. And, the people, the paparazzi, the people outside looking in are really fascinated because of who's sitting drinking your wine. If you could imagine anyone from any walk of life, living or deceased, who would you want to be drinking your wine? I warmed up your introspection, so.
Basquiat. You'd have to go into the straight. You have to perform a string theory time machine.
Okay, Basquiat. Okay. Which three wines would you take with you if you had to go to a desert island? Your last three wines.
That would be tragic.
It would be, but...
That'd be tragic. how would I get to pick in that scenario? It would just be like the bottles would like wash ashore, and I'd hope to be on like some kind of great
I don't know
cruise ship, or like some great yacht.
It's your imagination, so it could be anything you want. They just magically appear in endless supply.
I love an old Giacomo Conterno, like old school Corolla.
Okay.
And I'd love a Rias. An old Rias, I'd love that. And maybe one of my ones. Maybe a Twilight Idol Grenache would be like good end of the world drinking. Has very high alcohol, so it can be really ripped.
3 red wines.
And I'd be probably really depressed on this abandoned island. So
I love
it'd be
it.
fun, getting drunk and body surfing. I don't know what it is.
Your island. So we're almost done here. We play a little game now, pairing wine with music. It's called Wine Soundtrack. So, we got to play a little game here. So you mentioned a few wines, and we've got a few of your wines sitting in front of us. So I want you to tell me what the wine makes you think of music-wise, what you want to be listening to, what it conjures up. So I want to start with the wine that I am sipping on that I had mentioned was a Chardonnay Grenache Blanc with skin contact and carbonic maceration, etc.
What song?
Song, musician, genre, song, as specific as you want or as generic as you want.
I think this is kind of like... I think I could get a little bit tropical with this. I could imagine like listening to like 07, something that has like kind of a more laid back, kind of easy, soulful jam to it. With Sia singing. What was that? There are a couple good songs on this 107 album. Is it called Simple Things? I don't know.
Okay, that works.
Destiny. I think it might be called Destiny. That's a good song. And The Waiting Line. I don't know.
Okay. Next one.
07.
Tell me about this wine that we have here that is kind of a rosé.
It's a skin contact and no skin contact blush.
Okay. Made with Chardonnay.
It's made with so it's 83% Chardonnay, 17% Mourvèdre. The 83% of Chardonnay is in 2 parts, roughly equal, and 1 part was on the skins for 219 days, and 1 part was barrel fermented.
Okay.
So 219 days on the skins is quite a long time for any skin contact wine. So you get like full impact of like the savory, sometimes sour, bitter quality tannin. And then you get the fresh, fruity esters from the barrel fermented aspect. So I'm kind of playing with skin contact wines. I like to play with sometimes balancing the fruit part with the savory part. So it's kind of a unusual blending technique, blending skin contact parts with barrel fermented or carbonic. Carbonic is also something that brings out the fruitiness of the wine. So you're in a white, you're kind of preserving some of the fruity part, but then with the skin contact, you're also introducing the savory part.
Right, and then this gets its blush because the Mourvèdre, which adds a little more of the pink color.
It's like kind of the Rossi technique for creating rosé. Blending finished wines. It's kind of the low end technique.
So what song would you pair with this?
With that song, with that wine, I would pair something a little bit more wild. I would go maybe. I think that's kind of like more daylight bitches brew. Like
Okay.
Miles Davis Bitches Brew, but you're like sitting in the backyard and it's hot.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
Okay. And then we have another wine here that's a 2018 Big Tang Syrah. What would you play with this?
That I'm going full Black Sabbath.
Okay.
Yeah. Black Sabbath, Paranoid. This is that's just what the wine like feels like. Mm-hmm. But I also have like a whole fantasy about this wine where I'm in South Carolina, whole hog barbecue in the middle of like the out in the woods somewhere, and it's like a crazy scene, and it turns into a rave. And it's like a drum and bass rave, like with Chemical Brothers, or so, or Prodigy, and it's like a wild time, like glow in the dark bracelets and necklaces and stuff, and then waking up like face planted, like with like forest floor on my face or something,
I was gonna have you pick a song with your Grenache that you mentioned for your island, but I think we're gonna leave on that one.
And then waking up and thinking like that was the best time I've ever had in my life
with this Syrah. Okay, perfect. Well, Scott, I have one more question for you. What wine region is on the top of your bucket list to explore?
Really?
Very cool. Well, we have made it through philosophy, introspection, and everything. The last question I have for you is, if people want to come taste your wines, how can they find you? You don't have a public tasting room, but you are by appointment, right?
Yes, by appointment at the winery.
Yeah, and so the winery is in Buellton, off Industrial Way, and you can make an appointment and have a cool tasting sitting among all these empty drunk bottles, but maybe you could drink some wines with Scott and add to his wall. And what is the website that they can go to find more information?
They can go to there are two websites at the moment, ccgpwines.com and scottieboy.wine.
Perfect. Well, check out either one. And Scott, thanks for joining us today at Wine Soundtrack. And let's continue drinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack USA. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.